really an honour and a privilege to be here. This is kind of like the fun part of my job. I'm an application services group manager, which means that I get to play with all the software and help City Hall accomplish the needs of the citizens. But as part of my remit these days, I also think a lot about what it means for citizen engagement. And I also try and think about kind of 3-5 years down the road, rolling 3 or 5 years down the road, what does it mean for citizen and government to come together to work and collaborate? So, for example, I'm now trying my iWatch to think about, okay, what can I do with this? How, as a citizen, can I would I consume government services? What can I do? What are limitations? How might government use this kind of thing? So we're just starting down the road with that. But it's been for Open Data, it's been 3 years of growth. And when people ask me, how do you do all this? It's kind of like somebody turning around and saying, "Hey, how do you climb that enormous mountain?" And you go, "So what?" Just did it. Put one foot in front of the other. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about tonight, it does have that dur quality because we just did it. It's a lot of basic stuff. It's not sexy. It's not particularly special. On the other hand, there's a couple of things that I want to bring out to the group as a whole, because I think as you start to think about where do you go for your future growth, I think there are some tools, techniques, and strategies that certainly we've had experience with that maybe we can share, we can help you with. And to tell the story of where we've gone with Open Data, I actually have to tell another story, and that's going to be a slightly longer story, but I think it's going to be a really useful one. It's all about maps and mapping. It actually starts in the initial sense with me coming here tonight. And to come here tonight, I used my iPhone, and yes, I did use my piece of tech, my iWatch, and I typed in the directions of where I was going to be. And I used the iPhone to do all my navigation. And as I'm driving along, I'm getting directions popping up on here, and it's giving me all the advice. Easy, straightforward. I could also see on the iPhone where some of the places I was passing by. It was giving me a lot of awareness and a lot of information on my locality, what was going on. And if I'd have done the same thing in 1200 AD, it would have gone a little differently. And in England, you'd have probably wouldn't have kind of like gone to your iPhone. You'd have gone to the monastery, not banged on the door if you're allowed in. If you were, one of the privileged few, you'd have gone in and instead of saying "Hey Siri," you'd have gone "Hey Abbot," and he would have taken you to a room and shown you this map. This map is huge. Yeah? It's about 14 feet wide, something like that. You can look it up online. It actually hangs now in Hereford Cathedral. And it's called the Hereford Mapper Monday. Mapper means cloth, Monday means world, right? So it's a cloth map, and it's been beautifully framed and all that kind of stuff. The colours aren't right, by the way, just in all honesty. I found one that was kind of like going to render better on a black and white screen. And as you start to see what the map of the world looks like to these folk in 1285, you're going to need to see some really interesting things. You're going to see Swedish monkeys. You're going to see ox-eating griffins. Right up at the top, you're going to see paradise, and if you actually were to walk right up to this map, you'd see kind of jewels and fantastic riches beyond wealth. You'll also know, as you're probably aware, that we can actually divide this map into 3. In the T shape there. Up there's Europe, up there's India, up there is, that's right, India, Africa, and Europe, and the bottom. Yeah? That bit right in the middle there is Mediterranean. We have Jerusalem, which at the time is thought to be the centre of the world. Okay? And we have mermaids. And the fact that people could get mermaids confused with sea lions or seals says a lot. And we have all kinds of weird things like Phoenix, Centaur. Yeah? We've heard about these things. And these are on the map. These, the abbot would have showed you definitely where the winged salamander could be found. Yeah, and if you want to watch out for that guy, because bad things happen there. The cyapod, by the way, was actually a human person. For those of you who don't know, with 1 foot, lived up in the hot areas of India, and the idea was that when it got too hot, he'd lie on his back with 1 big foot, covering himself and give himself a kind of sunshade. Yeah, it existed. There are animals.
So all this stuff is on the internet too, right? I mean, what's really changed?
You will see. You will see. Right. So, and that begs the question. What is right and what is wrong with all this? It's not a map from our conventional sense of how do I get around and how do I find my way. It is. If you look around here, you've got British Isles, very well detailed. You've got Europe, very well detailed. Yeah. And then the further out we go, the kind of more sketchier it gets, and kind of we kind of depend more on travellers, folklore, urban myths, all that kind of stuff. The other creature I'd like to draw your attention to, which will be important later on, is actually the bonacon, which, for those of you who don't know, was actually a mythical beast, that 4 legs, and sprayed burning dung over 3 hectares. Yeah. Again, we can avoid this thing like the plague. Right. So there's more going on here. This is not just a map about spatial coordinates, how I relate to the surroundings. You'll notice, for example, right at the top, there's God in the heaven. Yeah? In the middle, there's roughly Rome. And at the bottom, that's it there, right? So we're also showing where we are in relation to each other from a religious perspective. Yeah? You'll also notice that this place shows the important countries that you're going to encounter on your travels, on your crusades, or whatever it is you're going to do. You'll notice that the British Isles is squidged right at the bottom of this map. Yeah? The guy who drew this apparently was actually English, but he was part of the church, which at the time was ruled from Rome. England in 1285 was not the kind of like place it became from an empire perspective. It was this real outpost that you really didn't want to have anything with, because all there was just a bunch of drunks and soccer hooligans, and that, pretty well that was about it. So England's kind of like wedged in there right at the bottom. So this then becomes more of a geopolitical statement on order. It's showing me where I am in the world. Yeah? And to show me where I am, I've taken some liberties, the guy who drew this has taken some liberties with what's going on and distorted it slightly. Like I say, it's got all the important countries listed. The countries that really matter in the USA is, I'm sorry, you're not there. So it's, by our standards, very distorted. So really, what is a map? A map's an abstraction of reality, because if I really want to do the most accurate map possible, I'm going to do a one-to-one representation. Of course, one-to-one is real life. So if I can't, obviously I can't carry the world around on my wrist, but I can shrink it down. But when I shrink it down, I have to make compromises. Yeah? Now, more importantly, a map, it really, I started thinking about this a couple months ago. A map's a way of demonstrating relationships, and it's a relationship from a particular viewpoint. Yeah, the guy who drew this map, like I say, he was English, but he was under the pay of the Roman Catholic Church. So really, his viewpoint was that Rome's right in the centre. I'm going to show you little England. You're right down the bottom. It was for a particular audience.